You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. It may look like an ordinary podcast, but this one's bigger on the inside, and it can travel anywhere in time and space. Pack your sonic screwdrivers and your jelly babies. Grab your hats, scarves, and tighten your bow ties. You're the companion now, so get ready to run with your hosts, Jason Hunt and Paul Gann. This is Talking Timelords. Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the Talking Timelords podcast. This is the episode entitled My Doctor Who Story. I am one of your hosts, Jason Hunt, and with me, my companion on this brand new adventure, we have Paul Gann. How's it going, Paul?
Hello. How's everybody doing out there in Whoville?
Oh, man. I'm excited. I am so excited to do this podcast. A little nervous, but I'm just excited to finally get this thing off the ground. It's been a long time coming.
I'm happy to be along for the ride.
Excellent. Excellent. So, real quick, we've got a topic for you we're going to talk about. But before we jump into that, we just want to let you know kind of what to expect from this podcast. For the podcast, this is sort of a discussion and review-based podcast. Discussion more than review. We will have various discussion-centric episodes where we talk about a topic or a character. You know, we'll have our these lists that we're going to do, top 5 lists, top 10 lists, whatever we decide to do. We'll have a lot of fun with those. We will also be doing classic and previously released New Who episode reviews. Not entirely sure what sort of schedule we'll get on that, but as we figure those out, we'll let you know. We will also be reviewing new episodes as they come out when Doctor Who Season 9 starts up this fall.
Yes.
Which is an exciting proposition.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it coming back. But we have a lot of freedom in the fact that we're doing more discussion-based stuff. So expect other topics such as, our top 5 doctors and top 5 companions, which will be episodes coming up shortly after this. So those will be fun to sort of kick off this new podcast and that sort of thing. You can tell I'm totally prepared for this thing. But tonight's episode is more of a sort of get to know your hosts sort of thing. So we're going to be telling our Doctor Who stories, how we, found out about Doctor Who, what we like about Doctor Who. We won't be talking about who our favorite Doctor is because that'll come up on our next episode. And so you'll have to come back for that. I'm already suckering you in. No. But I've got a couple questions here to help sort of guide the conversation and get things kicked off. And of course, Paul, if you have a tangent that comes up, and if I have a tangent that comes up...
We always have tangents, right?
Yes. We will chase that rabbit down the hole and probably get stuck. So, first off, Paul, how did you first hear about Doctor Who? Did you hear about it before you first saw it?
Actually, I was about 8, maybe 9, the first time that I even knew it existed. And at that particular point, um, well, let's just put it this way. I'm significantly older than you are.
Yes.
Probably almost doubly so.
Maybe not
so
quite.
this was back, I guess, about 1982, somewhere around in there. And we had literally, I think, 4 channels on the television at that point, and one of those channels was the Public Broadcasting Network. And the Public Broadcasting Network was showing episodes of Doctor Who on Saturdays at that point. And I'm not exactly sure how far behind they were from the episodes that were showing in Britain, but I do know that they were behind because I know that at that particular time, Tom Baker had been the Doctor up through like 81, and in 82 and 83 I was still seeing Tom Baker episodes on the Public Broadcasting Network, and I was just flipping through the channels, and I just happened to stop on this show. And prior to that, probably the biggest thing that I had seen as far as sci-fi, well, I had seen a few sci-fi things, but I had never really I guess gotten deep into the story of it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
One of those things I think was way back. I think it was maybe 4 or 5. I remember episodes of Battlestar Galactica way back in the day. Some reruns of Lost in Space, things like that. But it wasn't something that I latched onto, something that resonated with me to the point where I wanted to sit down all the time and watch it. And when I ran up on this, it was like it just grabbed my attention, and I was hooked almost immediately.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. We should probably have mentioned the fact that both of us are American fans of
Yes.
Doctor Who.
Yes.
Yes. We come from this from a very Yank perspective, so to
Yes.
speak. We're a couple of Yanks who like a British sci-fi show. So, and why not? It's incredible.
And for some reason, I have always been able to kind of associate with British television programming.
There's some pretty good British television out there. So, I suppose I should probably answer this question. How
Yes.
did I first hear about Doctor Who? I am a much newer newcomer to Doctor Who. It was probably about 3 years ago now. I was going to my first ever Phoenix Comic-Con, and I had friends over the years, who knew I was into sci-fi. Star Wars was and still is a big thing for me. But they were like, "Oh, you like sci-fi? You should check out this show, Doctor Who." And I remember thinking, "Oh, maybe someday," that sort of thing. And I remember one year I was gonna, sit down and check it out or whatever. It was probably at the beginning of the year, because Phoenix Comic-Con is in May, end of May, beginning of June, which is coming up very fast for me, again, this year.
Fun.
But I think probably at the beginning of that year, 2012, I think it would be, I had looked into Doctor Who to see, if I'd be interested. And then I saw how many episodes there were. And I went, oh, this is a time commitment.
Yes.
And I'm just starting my, this semester of college, and I don't have the time to commit to this. Maybe later. And so semester finished, and I went to Phoenix Comic-Con with a friend who had recently gotten into the show. He and his girlfriend had been watching it. But we went to the show, and he was pointing out to me all the different people that were cosplaying as different incarnations of the Doctor. And David Tennant and Matt Smith Doctors were very big at the time. The Fez and the Mop was very prevalent at that
Yes.
convention. So, but just seeing all of those people and hearing him talk about it and pointing those out was like, I should probably check this out. This seems like a good idea. And we drove back from Phoenix because I live in Tucson, just about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And we drove back from Phoenix. And that night, I decided I was going to start watching Doctor Who. And so I did. Well, everybody was telling me, start with the new series. There's a lot of the old series, and some of them are good, but they're mostly just very, very cheesy. And, the new stuff is much, much better. And I'm a bit of an oddball, so I did the very most unexpected thing that most of my friends would think. I had Netflix, and so I had a very limited exposure to the classic Doctor Who. But I was like, I want to see who this person is, from the very beginning. And so I watched the only First Doctor storyline that they have on Netflix, which at the time, and it probably still is, was the Aztecs.
Yes, it still is.
Okay. That's the only one that Netflix has. Hulu Plus, by the way, much better for classic Doctor Who if you're interested in going back.
I was looking at it today, actually, and they, if I'm not mistaken, they only have one story arc per season for like the first 17 seasons, I think, something like that.
Yeah, well, they've only got 17 story arcs, and it sort of jumps around. They've got, I think, one for the first Doctor, one for the second, I think 2 or 3 for the third, and 4 for Tom Baker, and so on. But anyways, but so I watched the Aztecs first. And then I watched all of the classic episodes that were on Netflix, and then jumped into the new series. And by the end of the summer, I was already finding Hulu Plus and all the different live Doctor Who DVDs at my library system, and I was just gorging myself on Doctor Who. So. I suppose that kind of answers the next question. Why did you first watch it as well? Did you have anything else you wanted to add as far as why you first decided to watch it?
The reason for me, I think, was the TARDIS, because the TARDIS was, at least in my mind, it was something completely unique, completely different. The whole aspect of this blue box that's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, that fascinated me as a child. I just thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And at 8 and 9 years old, you're not focused on what the special effects look like. You're not focused on what costumes look like. You're focused on the story. If it's a cool story, I'm hooked. And I'm on for I'm on this ride. To find out where this is going to take me. And like I said, I had seen like some episodes of Lost in Space, things like that. This, to me, seemed like that it was doing sort of the same thing that Lost in Space was doing, but it was doing it better. The characters were believable. The characters, I mean, these were serious actors playing serious roles, and you could tell that they wanted to tell a serious story. And for example, like with the TV show Babylon 5, that is sort of the same scenario they had with that show. They had great storytelling, great acting. It didn't matter to me whether the CGI was bad on that show. It mattered to me whether the story was good, and once the story's good, the acting is good, and all of that, I'm going to jump on that ride and take that show and see where it's going to take me.
Nice. Yeah. As someone who, was interested in sci-fi, particularly Star Wars, I was looking for something a little bit different. Star Wars is great, but if you have 2 shows or movie franchises that are doing the exact same thing, one of them isn't necessarily needed. So I wanted to broaden my sci-fi, horizons. And,
right.
And this was a great way to do it, time travel and, that sort of thing. The TARDIS was definitely an interesting thing to learn about, how it's bigger on the inside. That's always fascinates me still. It's just how big the TARDIS really is on the inside, and they've added and lost rooms and rearranged it 50 bajillion different
somewhere
times.
in there's a swimming pool.
Yes. We have seen that in an episode or two, but you said your first Doctor was Tom Baker, correct?
Yes.
And what was your impression of him as the Doctor?
Well, I thought that he was kind of interesting because for me, he seemed like he was both whimsical and wise at the same time. He seemed to be a good-hearted person, but someone that needed to be taken seriously. He seemed a lot more complex than some of the characters that I had seen in other shows of the same ilk. Because a lot of the stuff that I had seen prior to that, a lot of the characters were really shallow, just kind of surface type characters. And like I said, this character to me seemed like it had meat. And it made me want to find out more about that character. He basically fascinated me from the very beginning in the way that he portrayed the character.
Cool. Now, obviously, due to my unconventional watching schedule, my first Doctor was William Hartnell.
Yes.
And so he's, very foundational, as I've gotten to know the other Doctors, realizing how very foundational he is as far as the character is concerned. He was a very interesting character, a little gruff, a bit of a know-it-all, sometimes very kindly, but other times just shouting and grumpy. Right. So he was a man of extremes, which was interesting to me, and so I was interested to see where he was going to go as a character. I kind of knew the basic premise going in, that he had multiple iterations and traveled in time and space and that sort of thing. I kind of knew the basic idea going in, and so I was very interested to see how that grew. But I wasn't quite expecting William Hartnell when I first started.
Right.
As a I'm used to the older characters being wise and gentle, like Master Yoda was or Obi-Wan Kenobi was in Star Wars.
Right.
And he was he could be wise and he could be gentle, but then he could just yell at you for getting something wrong.
And I think that you do get to see the evolution of the character that he plays over time. That he does become a more gentle hearted character.
Right.
He still has some of that gruff exterior, but you can see over time where he begins to actually care about other people, as opposed to saying, well, this isn't my responsibility. I shouldn't be involved in this. Let them fend for themselves. Let's be honest. I think the first 12 or 13 episodes, maybe, I was seeing that type of attitude with him. This is not my affair. I need to stay away from this. Let them take care of that. That's their problem.
Right.
And he changed from that to somebody who actually cared about other people, and I think that's a really nice story arc.
Right. And of course the Aztecs
character arc.
Yes. And of course the Aztecs is probably, I think it's the 4th or 5th storyline ever. Mm-hmm. So it's still in the first season, so you've still got that, cranky, gruff,
right,
old man as William Hartnell. So he does get very, eager and invested in what's going on in the Aztecs. So he's starting to get that nice balance between, who he is at the start and who he becomes at the end of his run as the Doctor. So that was kind of cool. But what was your first regeneration like, and were you expecting it?
No, I was not. See, I went into this not having any previous knowledge of the Doctor at all. I went into this not realizing that there were previous incarnations. In my mind, I was thinking that Tom Baker was the first and only Doctor. And so when I first saw that episode where he had that regeneration, it blew my mind, because I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, first of all, I'm thinking, I know that they didn't just kill off my favorite character, how are they going to have a show if they killed off my favorite character? And so I'm thinking, well, this must be the last episode of the show. And the next thing I know, he stands back up and he's a completely different person, and I'm just blown away. And I'm thinking, I don't know how I feel about this. This is not right. This is not cool. Of course, I'm 8-9 years old. I'm not thinking in terms of, well, let's see where this story takes me. I'm thinking in terms of, this was my favorite character. They've messed up my favorite character. I'm sure that some newer fans probably felt the same way when David Tennant turned into Matt Smith. But
Mm-hmm.
But that was my first experience with finding out about regenerations, and it took me a minute to wrap my head around it, and to be able to say, well, maybe I can give this new Doctor a shot. Maybe I can see where this is going to go from here. Because it was something that I totally did not expect to happen.
I can imagine.
Especially to have that drastic of a change from looking this way to looking completely different,
Right.
In my mind, I'm thinking, well, if he's regenerating, why does he look that different? Why does he dress that different? And I didn't understand that each incarnation had a different personality, and obviously mostly all of the same memories, but just almost like, I guess you'd say that somebody took a diamond and turned it to a different facet, so that you're looking at a different facet of the same person.
That's a really neat way of putting that.
Yeah. But which, to be honest with you, I fully expect at some point that we'll end up seeing the Doctor's inner child or something at some point, where he will regenerate and be like 15 years old or something. I think that would be really funny to see.
Go from Capaldi to a 15-year-old.
I think that would be really fun, because he's going to look like a kid. He's going to look like a teenager, and he's going to be the smartest guy in the room, and nobody's going to want to listen to him because he looks like a child. I think that would be so funny.
Oh, that is an awesome idea. I hope Stephen Moffat is listening.
I really think that would be funny. It would be humorous, but it'd be, I think, good storytelling at the same time.
Yeah. I've never thought of that. You just kind of blew my mind there. That's really kind of awesome. Oh, man. Well, my first experience with regeneration, I went into the show knowing that there was multiple versions, and that the transition from one to the other is called a regeneration. That's kind of all I knew, though. But due to the very limited amount of episodes on Netflix, it took me several Doctors before I got to see a regeneration in person. The first episode of the third Doctor, John Pertwee, on Netflix picks up, right after he's regenerated, and he, falls out of his TARDIS, newly regenerated, and, in the middle of a forest. But I didn't
see that yet.
But I didn't get to see that happen. I didn't know what was going on there, and so we didn't get to see. I didn't get to see the transition from Pertwee to Baker. I didn't get to see the transition from Tom Baker to Peter Davidson. It took me to one of the Peter Davidson episodes that they have on Netflix, Caves of Androzani, which is one of the best episodes of Doctor Who, of classic Doctor Who ever, where he regenerated into Colin Baker.
You're giving me more homework.
I am.
You're giving me more homework.
It has one of the most dramatic and impactful moments of the Doctor period, in my opinion. And I think it's the end of the third episode of that arc. But anyway, he regenerates into Colin Baker on screen, and that's the first time I've seen this, and it's a very odd regeneration. Out of all of them, it's one of the weirdest because, he's poisoned and he doesn't really understand what's, if it's going to work this time. And he, has flashes of, his companions and then his enemies, and, the master flashes in front of his mind saying, die, die, die. And the screen just sort of, fades into this weird purple-orange effect that's, pulsating at you. And then all of a sudden it's gone, and Colin Baker sits up, and I was like, whoa, that was fast. Well, not fast, but that was sudden. Are all of the regenerations like that? And, come to find out, obviously, later on I was able to see more of them, and no, not all of them. Some of them are more, smooth, obvious. There's a couple of...
It seems like that each regeneration, I should say, looks different, too.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the new series, all of the different regenerations have looked different in some way.
Yeah, there's something unique about each regeneration.
Yes.
So, which is good. I think it's great. But it was just very sudden and a little bizarre to see that one. As my first real experience with a regeneration, I was like, whoa, this is weird. But I like it because, I'm a very weird person. But as if you continue to listen to this, folks, you will find out.
He's not alone.
But yeah, so that was my first, going in knowing that this was happening, and then finally getting to see it, 5 doctors in. It was a bit of a jolt. Because I didn't expect it to happen in that episode either. So I was watching the episode going, "Oh, this is crazy. How is he gonna get out of this situation? Oh, he's not. Oh, that's interesting. It's not knowing that was going to be the last episode of Peter Davidson. Like we know now. Oh, this is going to be the regeneration episode. We all know.
And see, sometimes I wish they wouldn't do that. Sometimes I wish that they would leave that completely to be able, for us to find out in the moment.
Right.
Because I think that would be so much more intense and entertaining, I think, for the fans if we did not know, 3 months in advance, this episode at Christmas or whatever is going to be the last episode for this actor,
Right.
I think sometimes I can go too far with sharing that information.
Right.
It takes it out, takes a little bit of it away from me, I think.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of the tension out.
Yes.
The interesting thing is going back and looking at some of the the episode lists. Is the episode where Peter Davison regenerates is not the last episode of that season. There's a whole, I think there's one entire storyline of Colin Baker, that ends that season, and so I think it would be cool if. They announced, here's the next Doctor, and then all of a sudden they decide to slip him in like 2 or 3 episodes before the end of the season, do the regeneration 2 or 3 episodes before the end of the season when everybody's expecting him at the season finale, like we've seen so far. I think it would be kind of cool if they did that, sort of surprised us, oh, you thought we were going to wait for the finale, did you? Ha, here's, here's the new Doctor, but, that's... Yeah, I think that'd be kind of interesting to try. Anyway, next question is, what about Doctor Who kept you coming back for more?
Oh, wow. Well, to be honest, at first, when I first started watching it, I didn't even know at the very first time I started watching it that the TARDIS was actually a time machine. I just thought it was a ship. Mm-hmm. I quickly realized what it was after I'd started watching it a little bit, but I think one of the things was the diversity of the different villains and the fact that every time that they started a new story arc, it didn't feel jarring as if okay, we're going to stop the story here and we're going to pick the story back up. It felt like a smooth transition, as if it was still part of the pre-existing story that they had before. And so it just felt natural to me to want to know what's going to happen next, especially with the way they had the stories broken up in 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 parts sometimes for a story arc. It just felt like, well, this just the next part of the story. Even though it started another story arc, it just felt like a smooth transition, as just this is just the next part of the story. And I think that first of all, I think it was the storytelling, because that is a key thing for me. If I don't like the storytelling, I can't stick with the show. Whether the acting can be phenomenal, whatever, if I don't connect with the characters and the way the stories are told, that's a big deal breaker for me. And I never had an issue with not connecting with the characters. I never had an issue with being taken out of the story. I was always engaged in the stories. And let's be honest, when you see the Daleks on screen as a kid, you definitely want to come back for more. Yeah, because those guys caught my attention right off the bat.
Nice. Nice. What kept me coming back is just the possibilities, of where and when he could go.
Right.
All the new places. It was a grand adventure, that the Doctor was on. That, and of course, just the character of the Doctor in general, is a fascinating character, and one that, is very easy for people to latch on to, at least from my perspective. It was easy for me to latch on to, but he was someone that, as he changed and as time went on, you could see the years and the different adventures and the different trauma that he had seen or experienced that weigh on him, and occasionally you'd see something, a reference to it and how he'd respond to it, that sort of thing. And it was something that, as the show progressed, as I got, continued to explore the world of Doctor Who, the fact that it, continued to reference previous events that we had already seen,
yes,
was fascinating to me. It's one of the most self-referencing shows I've ever watched, and I like it. But just the possibilities, the excitement of when and where is he going to show up next, and what kind of adventure is this fascinating character of the Doctor going to be on this episode?
That's something I was noticing yesterday watching some of the episodes of the Fifth Doctor. I noticed that some of the things that I saw in some of the episodes of the Fifth Doctor matched some things that I had seen in the new series. And vice versa. They referenced back to the Fifth Doctor for some of the costuming and some of the visuals that I had seen in the new series. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And on that note, how many Doctors have you seen?
I have finally seen them all. Yeah, I had some really grueling homework. No, it was really fun. I got to go back and see some of the Doctors that I had not gotten a chance to see. And I cheated a little bit. I watched the 5 Doctors and I watched the 3 Doctors. So I got to see some of the Doctors in the same episodes together. But at this point, the one I've seen the least of is the 7th Doctor. I plan to fix that. But now, just to be honest, for me, I've never been somebody that wants to watch stuff out of order. If I watch a show, I always want to start from the beginning and work my way through. So it's going against my
Your natural grain?
Yes, it's going against my natural grain to skip from one Doctor to the next and watch different story arcs. But because they are broken into story arcs, it makes it easier for me to do that and see it as a self-contained story as opposed to going into this and not knowing what's going on. So that does make it easier, but I do intend to get a little bit of a feel for each one, and then go back and watch them all from the beginning all the way through. That's my goal, is to see every episode all the way through the new series from front to back.
Awesome. Part of the reason why I started this podcast is because I have seen all of the Doctors. Every single one of them. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I have not seen every episode. There are still a couple of holes. Obviously, there are some missing episodes that are just not available anywhere. Well,
not in their complete format, anyway.
Not in their complete form. Either some of them are just audio with images or
yes.
Things of that nature. But I've got a couple of holes, especially in some of the classic eras. But I've seen most of all of the Doctor's episodes, and I know I've seen all of the Sixth Doctor, all of the Seventh Doctor. I've seen every episode from the Sixth Doctor on. Let's just put it that way. I've got a couple of holes in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but it's just exciting, and the fact that I'm, at this point where I'm, going on my second complete watch through right now. I've just started David Tennant. So it's almost over. It'll be done before the new season starts, so that's the goal. Going through the second complete watch through, I was like, I need some place to talk about Doctor Who, which is one reason why Talking Timelords exists. So,
well, the cool thing too is now that we've had a chance to talk about some of this stuff a little bit, you can actually go back and look for some things that we've talked about in the episodes, like, for example, the End of Time. I know we've talked about a couple of things in that have to do with the Weeping Angels and things that you can go back and look for in that episode.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes. But we will probably have episodes discussing various elements of those things at future points. Let's see, where's my next question? So, the next question is, how well is your fandom held up over time? So.
It's never ended. Well, now this is just a little history. I started out with Tom Baker, moved into and now I've gone blank. Moved into Peter Davidson, and there were gaps all over the place with both of those because of the way that I had to go about trying to watch them. If my parents wanted to watch something on TV, well, tough. You don't get to watch Doctor Who. So I go over like to my friend Charles's house. He's the one I told you about before. And I actually got him interested in watching the show because I was like, dude, you got to see this show. It comes on Saturday afternoons. And, I was telling him all about it. And he's like, he's a little younger than I am, but he was looking at me like I'd lost my mind. What are you talking about, this blue box? And, so I start watching it with him, and he was immediately hooked. And, if I was ever able to be at his house on a Saturday afternoon, that was what we were watching. We were,
nice.
It was like we've got to find out if there's an episode coming on today, and sometimes it was a little bit hard to follow storylines because we didn't always get to see every episode, and so we would have to try to, pick up on what was happening next and that kind of thing. And luckily, when there were multiple episodes in a story arc, sometimes we would be able to pick up and say, well, we know what's happening now. We know what we saw before, so we can kind of fill in the blanks of what happened between this and this.
Right.
So, but when it got to the Sixth Doctor, I did not get to see that regeneration, and I did not get to see hardly any episodes at all of the Sixth Doctor. It was one of those things where episodes were becoming more and more difficult to find in my area, and I don't know if that had something to do with the fact that maybe in certain areas interest had gone down in the show or whatever. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. In the area that I live in, those types of shows, especially back in those days, were not nearly as prevalent anyway. And so to find something like that, for me, it was like finding a diamond somewhere. It's like, oh, this is so awesome, there's nothing else like it. And so I started losing the ability to find those episodes once I got into the Sixth Doctor, which is the reason why I had actually never seen anything at all other than just tiny little clips of the Seventh Doctor and some photographs and things like that, and until more recently. But I did know, I did hear about it in some way whenever the series was canceled, and I knew when that happened, and it kind of upset me because I felt like, well, now I'll never get a chance to be able to watch this again. And then, I got out of high school and going on about my life, and suddenly, out of nowhere, here comes this made-for-TV movie. And I'm going, oh my god, they're going to start it back up. This is so awesome. And so, I knew I had to be home when this thing came on, and started watching it from the beginning. And of course, the way things always go, there's storms that night, so the signal, the signal's not great. I'm watching it on a snowier kind of picture and whatnot, but I was getting the story, and I was enjoying it at that time, and for the time when it came out, I mean, let's just be honest, it was pretty good for the time that it came out. The special effects were pretty good. They had updated the inside of the TARDIS. They had, done a lot of things to make it look, more polished and more, modern for the times and everything. Revamped some of the music, things like that. And I'll just be honest, I thought Paul McGann's performance as the Doctor was outstanding. I thought he did a really good job, and he didn't have an opportunity to do more with that character, and I thought that was a really bad thing. I think we could have seen a lot more out of him in that role. And I may be off when I say this, but I heard somewhere that that was actually there was an American company that was supposed to be trying to pick up the show and start it up again in America, and somehow or another it supposedly had some kind of loose ties with Steven Spielberg or something. I don't really know. But because the ratings for that TV movie were low, I can't remember. I think it may have come on a Friday or Saturday night. I can't remember. But it may have even been a Sunday night, but it wasn't shown, at least in my opinion, at a time where they were shooting for their best shot for the demographic. Because let's be honest, that the show has always been focused more toward a slightly younger audience in the past. Not so much now as it was back then, but in the past, it was more a slightly younger audience.
Right.
And there just weren't ratings for it, and so what was supposed to actually be like a pilot to start a new series went nowhere, and that broke my heart. I was like, oh man, this just can't happen, So I'm thinking, well, it's done, it's over with, never going to be able to see this again. And I think I was telling you about this before.
Right.
Um, it's back in, I guess, 2005 now. I was late at night, thumbing through the channels, and I come up on the Sci-Fi channel, and I had the sound turned down so that I wouldn't wake up the house, and I see the trailer for the series, the new series. I had no idea of knowing what it was. They'd not shown the TARDIS. They'd not shown, uh, anything that would very clearly indicate that this was Doctor Who. And I had no way of being able to hear it because the sound was turned down and the lights were out. The only light in the room was from the TV screen, and it was like I'm flipping through the channels, and there was some other stuff that I watched on Sci-Fi at that time. So I put the remote down, and the trailer comes on, and I see this trailer, and I don't know what it was. Immediately, it hit me in my mind. I said, "Oh my God, that's Doctor Who." And I don't know if it was the sets or if it was the air that Christopher Eccleston put off, what it was. It was just immediately I was like, oh my God, that's got to be Doctor Who. That has to be Doctor Who. So I'm fumbling trying to find the remote, in the dark. I pick up the remote. By the time I finally get the volume turned up, I've already missed the rest of the trailer. I missed the title of the show. I had absolutely no idea of knowing what this show was, but in my mind, I know this is Doctor Who. So I start looking online to try to find out what's going on. And then I found that this was the new show of Doctor Who. And I was like, I knew it. I knew that was Doctor Who. And so, I had to immediately find out then when they were going to air these shows. And at that point, there was the same type of situation that there was in the previous show, where you had a delay from the time that they were shown in Britain to the time that they were shown in America. So these shows, I think, had shown like an entire year before in Britain, but we were just getting them now in America at that point. So it may have been 2006 at that point when I found the show, because I started watching them on Sci-Fi Channel. I found out when they were going to come on. I DVR'd them, and I came home late from work one night. I think it was maybe on a Friday or something, and I sat down and I started binge watching the new show, and it was kind of interesting because I remember it went from season one. There was only maybe, I think, a 2 or 3 month gap, I think, and it was going straight into season two, and so I didn't have that big of a wait to see what was happening in season two, because they were catching you up because they were going to show season two. Nice. And so but it was a really big shock for me at that point too, because I wasn't expecting a regeneration that quickly in the new show. I was definitely not expecting that. But I've been on board ever since. It's a cool ride, dude.
Awesome. That's awesome. My Doctor Who fandom, being so much shorter, hasn't died at all. If anything, it's only gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I know I drive my brother nuts running around with my sonic screwdriver.
I want one of those.
Fourth Doctor sonic screwdriver. Thank you very much.
I want the blue one.
Yes, that's a good one too. Mine's better. No, but just seeing as how my story is so much shorter, I don't have as much to say. But the fandom for the show has really just I've never had a chance to really let there be a lull in it, because there's just so much to take in as far as Doctor Who. And by the time I'd get caught up in one area, the new stuff would be out, and then I'd, watch all the new stuff, and then, that would end, and I'd, go back and, fill in all the gaps from, the other things. And then by the time I'm done with that, the new stuff is back again. And so it was one of those things where, and honestly, I think the first season I watched live was Matt Smith's final season. So
really?
Season 7. Yeah, I think this is the first season I watched live, and I would go over to my friend Kyle's house, who introduced me to Doctor Who, every week, and we'd watch it then, But, yeah, that was the first time I watched the series live. The rest of it was Netflix or Hulu or DVDs and that sort of thing. But I haven't really been given a break yet with my Doctor Who fandom. It's almost 3 years now, and I haven't caught a break yet. And then I've got a couple of other things I'll talk about when we get to our next question. But
I will say this. When I started the new series, I wasn't 100% sure how I was feeling about it because I was so used to the older series, and even the movie had a tone, at least in the way the story was told, that felt similar to the original series. Even though the visuals and things were different, it still had a tone that felt similar to the original series. So when I got into the new show, I was like, hey, I'm on board for this. I'm going to see where this is going to take me. But I really wasn't 100% hooked until the Dalek episode in that first season.
Oh, nice.
And when I saw that episode, I knew at that point, I'm never going to stop watching this show.
Oh, man.
Because that brought everything from my childhood and everything back,
Right. And it's weird for me because I have watched so much in such a small amount of time that it takes me a lot. The changes in tone between the classic and the new and the movie, it doesn't really register as much because I'm just like, it's more Doctor Who, more Doctor Who, more Doctor Who, So, not having the time to get used to a specific style or used to a specific doctor, I haven't really, I like specific doctors more than others, but I haven't had a doctor to really just get comfortable with and to take, spend a lot of time with because I've watched so much in such a small amount of time. So it's very interesting when people, tell me how, sad they were that Tennant left or how devastated they were when Matt Smith was leaving or that sort of thing, or, even you with Tom Baker, that sort of thing. It's one of those things where people are like, oh man, it's such a, such a difficult thing to let go of this actor, this person, and I'm like, I'm just ready for the next one because this is cool. So, I haven't had the time to really settle in and get comfortable with with one specific doctor yet, and so I'm wondering what'll happen when Capaldi regenerates. How that'll affect me. Hopefully, he won't do that for another couple of seasons. I'd like to see him stick around for like 4 seasons or something.
I'm still getting used to him, to be honest with you.
So I accepted him almost instantaneously, just because, like I said, it's so many doctors in such a small time. So I, going from, Hartnell to Smith in less than,
it took me, my mic. I'm not going to lie about it. It took me a full season to get used to Matt Smith after the regeneration.
Wow.
It wasn't that I didn't like Matt Smith. It was that I just wasn't used to him playing that part. Right. And so he had to grow on me over that first season, and by the end of that first season, I was on board. I was like, hey, this dude's great. I love this guy. Right. But especially for the first 2 or 3 episodes after, I was like, I don't know if I'm feeling this guy or not. It's just so different, especially with the fish fingers and custard and things like that, which was completely offbeat. And completely opposite from what we had just previously seen.
Right. Right. But, with my first experience being Netflix, and obviously I didn't find out Hulu Plus had a bunch more classic episodes until after I had caught up on the new
Right.
series at the time. Going from Hartnell to Matt Smith in like 3 or 4 months, you know, going from, each of those doctors in such a small amount of time, you don't really take the time to get really invested in them because you're like, I just want to see the next one. I got to see the next one. Got to see the next one. Got to see the next one. So it was one of those things where, now that I'm having to, just simply because I'm getting so caught up on stuff, slow things down because, now the next thing is going to take, an entire season to get through, and we'll have all this time with Peter Capaldi and,
Yes.
that sort of thing. It's going to be an interesting experiment for me to see how that all works. But let's get on.
He's grown on me a lot. I will say that.
I really enjoy him.
But now he to me he feels a lot. He has a vibe to him that almost feels like a mixture to me of the first and sixth Doctors.
Yes, William Hartnell and Colin Baker
Yes.
for those. They were definitely getting a first Doctor vibe, right off the bat, and then the volatility and the sort of almost pendulum swing as far from like angry to kind,
Yes.
happens in there, and that's definitely Colin Baker. So, and we will talk more about that at some other time.
Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yes. But of course, obviously, with a lot of his own take on the Doctor.
Oh yeah,
everybody,
most definitely.
everybody's got, and you have to have that, because if you're just, mashing up previous Doctors, that's not that interesting. So.
Well, it is part of being different facets of the same person, though.
Exactly. Exactly. So, where is your Doctor Who story now? Where are you at now? We've kind of,
Oh, wow.
alluded to some of this stuff already.
Well,
but...
I'll just give you an example. Last 2 Christmases in a row, I've gotten in trouble for insisting that we have to watch the Doctor Who episode while it's airing live during the family Christmas get-together. Because I can't miss it. It's coming on. I have to see it. I don't want to wait and watch it tomorrow. It's just become that important for me. It's
nice.
It's awesome.
That's pretty cool. I guess for me right now, it's sort of at this place where I'm sitting on the edge of my seat going, what's next? What's next? This is exciting. I'm really looking forward. And of course, for both of us, where it is now is we're starting a podcast all about it. So, that's a new way to do things. And I guess this will sort of bleed into the last question here is, how do you express your Doctor Who fandom or, your Whovian-ness?
It's like I said before. There are ways that you want to express it, and then there are ways that you're able to express it. And sometimes financial situations and things have bearing on that. One of the things that I would like to do is do some cosplay at some point. I think that would be really fun. Of course, kind of need to have some place to do that. And this is not. I live in the devil's armpit, so we don't have those types of things in my area. So I'm going to have to find a con or something to go to in order to really be able to enjoy that and appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you and I at some point were able to go to a con together, I thought it'd be kind of cool if maybe you went as the Doctor and I went as the Master. Because I think I could pull that character off.
Nice.
But no, the biggest thing that I'm doing at this point is trying to spread the fandom. I've gotten pretty much my entire family watching the new shows. My wife is catching up on them on Netflix. My son, my 12-year-old son, has now gotten to the point to where he wants to come over here and he wants to watch the show with the family.
Nice.
When he was younger, there were certain episodes that he would not want to watch because he would think, well, it's scary. I don't want to watch this. And he's gotten to the point now where he just wants to see the next show. He wants to see where it's going to go from here. And so being able to share the fandom with friends and I'm actually trying to get my nephew to come over this weekend if I possibly can, and see if I can get him to binge watch the Eccleston season with me.
Oh, nice.
Because he's 14. No, actually, he just turned 15 today. I'm sorry. He's 15. He's of that generation where, let's just face it, they're going and watching Avengers and stuff at the movies. He's not going to be able to latch onto the classic episodes the same way that somebody like me would be able to. He's going to have to start on the new shows and then grow from there.
Right.
So I'm trying to get him to come over and watch the Eccleston season with me on Netflix so that I can spread the fandom to him.
That's awesome. It's a good season. And as someone who just finished it earlier this week, I can say Eccleston is a great, great doctor. So.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yes. Yes. He's fantastic. It's that's very true. I guess how I express my fandom.
Fantastic.
Yes, fantastic. And this is something that's sort of transitioned from my Star Wars fandom. I'm a collector. I've got a bunch of action figures and books and things like that from Star Wars, and so when I started getting into Doctor Who, I was like, well, that's just sort of the natural way that this is going to go. And I don't have nearly as big a collection, obviously, because now I'm a poor college student, poor college graduate, as of last week or maybe 2, depending on when this gets aired. Thank you. But I've got a couple of figures. I've got a 4th Doctor, a K9, a Dalek, and a 3-pack from the Pyramids of Mars villains set.
I still haven't gotten to see that yet.
Oh, it's such a fun episode. So it's got Sutek and a couple of mummies. And then one of the big things I'm doing right now is I'm reading Doctor Who. I've decided to collect a lot of the Doctor Who novels, more so than I ever got into collecting books for Star Wars. And I'm actually about a third of the way through The Sands of Time by Justin Richards, which is a 5th Doctor story, and it's the last book in the Monster collection that came out a year or so ago in bookstores. So that's fun. My next book is going to be the Engines of War story with the War Doctor. So finally get to see a little bit more of him. So that's exciting.
Oh, nice.
But the other thing I do is I do have a 4th Doctor costume, and so I cosplayed
cool.
as the 4th Doctor a couple of times, and that will be in about a week and a half. I will be doing it yet again at Phoenix Comic Con. So
I'm so jealous.
So excited to dust off the old scarf and get out there again. So I'm giving a lot of hints as to what maybe my favorite Doctor is. I've just noticed that. But anyways, my next Doctor Who cosplay is hopefully, and this may take a while. Because there's going to be a lot of stuff I don't have to buy and not just make, is going to be the 7th Doctor with his question mark,
Yes.
pullover and his umbrella and
He's
everything.
got a really cool costume.
It's I know some people are a bit put off by the yellow and pink and of the pullover and everything, but it's just an odd costume, and but he's an odd doctor, so it fits, and
Well, the outfits for 5, 6, and 7 were a little bit more colorful and a little bit more edgy, I think, than some of the ones that came before.
Right. And it's funny, those are some of my favorite costumes. I wonder what that says about me. Anyways, but yeah, so that's how, obviously, of course, watching the episodes, and I've got most of the soundtracks, on my iPod too. So I listen to Doctor Who music a lot, and whenever I'm reading the Doctor Who novels, I always put my Doctor Who playlist on, and I put it on shuffle, and I listen to the music while I'm reading the book. So
yes,
something I picked up from my Star Wars reading, because you always have to listen to the Star Wars music when you're reading your Star Wars book. So why not do the same thing with Doctor Who?
I do that with Spotify, so
nice. It's a free way to do it.
At least for now.
At least for now. So, all right. Well, any other information about your Doctor Who story that you want to get out there before we start, wrapping this up?
Well, I think it's kind of cool. I was watching, like I said, this past week especially, I've watched a lot of Doctor Who in this past week. I've actually jumped around a lot. I've watched some of the Eccleston episodes. I've watched some of the Colin Baker episodes. Both second and third Doctors a little bit. And every time the theme music comes on, my 18-month-old starts dancing in his in his playpen. I think that's just absolutely amazing. He already has a TARDIS onesie, so I think it's only appropriate, But he loves that theme music, and every time that I'm watching one of those episodes, he just sits there glued to the screen. He's just amazed by what's going on.
Nice.
So
I'm just glad it's a TARDIS onesie and not a TARDIS diaper. Because I wouldn't want that to be bigger on the inside.
No.
Oh, my goodness.
I've got pictures of him in his onesie. I may have to post one of those to the Facebook page.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that reminds me. If you're curious, folks, about my Fourth Doctor cosplay, and it's his first outfit, there's a couple of pictures on our Facebook page, and we'll give you all the information about where that is, of me in the costume on there. So if you're curious about that, go check those out. But yeah, tonight I've got laundry I need to fold, and so I'm gonna be putting on Doctor Who again, Tooth and Claw from Tennant's first season is my next episode. So
that's a good one.
It is. And then School Reunion, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing Sarah Jane and K9 again.
Really good one.
So very much looking forward to seeing Sarah Jane and K9 again. So I'll probably end up watching both of those later tonight. But anyways,
I suppose I should mention this. On our bathroom door, I have a TARDIS hand painted on my bathroom door with a male and female symbol on either side of it, representing the Doctor and his companion. I thought that was pretty neat. I have a TARDIS rug in my bathroom and a TARDIS soap dispenser in my bathroom. So
wow,
yeah,
you're getting
and a TARDIS on the back windshield of my car.
Excellent. Yeah, I've got quite a few Doctor Who art prints on my wall surrounding my desk, so it's very nice to just look up over my shoulder, and voila, I've got a 50th anniversary print sitting right up there, which looks very awesome.
Yeah, I'm jealous of that too, by the way.
I'll need to take a picture of that and share that with folks on our Facebook page and Twitter. But I only have one Doctor Who t-shirt, and that needs to change.
And I only have one as well.
So the good news is I'm going to Comic-Con in a week and a half, and so hopefully I'll be able to find another shirt while I'm there, and it won't cost me like $40, arm and a leg, because you know how these conventions go. Anyways, any final thoughts before we start wrapping this up, giving people our information and that sort of thing?
I can't think of anything right now, no.
Okay, cool. But yeah, if you're wanting to connect with us, in which we would be very happy for you to do that, be sure to check us out on we've got a Facebook page and a Twitter account, facebook.com/TalkingTimelords. Our Twitter handle is @TalkingTimeLord, because apparently adding one more character would have broken Twitter or something to that. So it's Talking Time Lord instead of Talking Time Lords for Twitter. Just one more character, folks. Anyways, we also have a website, www.talkingtimelords.com. It is under construction, but it should be getting built up, very quickly here. So by the time you hear this episode, there should be something there that you'll be able to check out. So if you want to check out the website, that would be awesome. Please get in contact with us. Tell us how you like the show. Talk to us about different doctors you like or what episodes you're watching now. We just want to get connected with you and interact with you, the listener, because you're kind of the companion for this show. So when we love having you guys along.
And if you're interested in seeing episodes of the show and you don't know where to find those episodes, you can contact us on our Facebook page and we can get back with you on that and give you some information on those as well.
Yes, especially if you're looking for some classic episodes. So, we like watching those. I was going somewhere with that, and my tongue got tied, and I have no idea where that was going. Anyways, all right. Well, I think this wraps up the very first episode of Talking Time Lords. Yes, it's been episode 1, my Doctor Who story. For Paul, I'm Jason. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this. And until next time,
may you hope far-flung hopes and dream impossible dreams.
Thanks, guys.